Yeah, I thought the first 7 months it was, as you said, I've been busy. I thought I was very involved. I thought it had all started, but there's no doubt, having come here this week and the points actually starting tomorrow, it really is feeling different. It's feeling a different buzz to it, and I swore to myself at the start of this, because having been as a vice captain over the years, you know, not to get too involved in the point scoring early on. That it changes so much, but like I'm keen to see who's leading on Sunday already. So it's I don't know. You just get drawn into it. You get sucked into it. But yeah, there's definitely a different buzz about this week. It does help we're here in Wentworth. It does help that we're at the BMW PGA Championship. You know, the flagship event on the European Tour. It does help that it's sunny out there. It just all seems to add to a big week.
And as you say, you've had a busy 7 months behind the scenes. Maybe give us an idea of what you've been up to.
Well, yeah, it has been very busy. Like, I got some sense yesterday that I realised that, you know, I had so many things planned yesterday, meetings, and I knew there'd be other meetings that would come along and different things, that I decided not to play a practice round. So maybe I'm, after this long in the game, I'm getting the sense that you can't do everything and you have to prioritise. So I got a lot of stuff done, but, you know, I started yesterday morning. I think I started with a 9:30 appointment, which was my own physio, but I didn't stop until 7 o'clock last night, and pretty much all meetings all day, different things. You know, lots of important stuff, but you know, other stuff that important to other people that you have to get through. You know, at other stages every week there's something to be done, something small, something big. What surprised me about all this Ryder Cup stuff is how much has to be done well in advance. So all the associate partners, all the people who are providing stuff, they need to get their ducks in a line now. You know, whether it's the clothing and things like that. And whereas I'm all about trying to do whatever it takes to get a winning team together. Being captain, you do have to do the extra stuff that's important. You know, behind the scenes, and there's quite a lot of detail to that. But as I said, tomorrow is the first day of the points, and we've already starting to get our statisticians behind it to get us lists of the potential players. I could tell you the percentage of each player's chance of making the team at this stage, which is really interesting, because you go, oh right, he's got a great chance. Oh, thought he'd be better. So you know, from that side, it's interesting and fun to be on the inside and to see what's happening behind the scenes. I'd like to say I wouldn't take it too seriously for the next couple of months, but it does seem like it's fascinating, put it like that.
Of course, you talked about people behind the scenes, and the important people for the Ryder Cup is, of course, our partners. And the eagle-eyed amongst you will have seen that we've added Aon to Rolex and BMW as a worldwide partner of the Ryder Cup, and that announcement will be made a little later this afternoon. Padraig, it's important, isn't it, that companies of that stature, the global companies, are involved with an event of the Ryder Cup stature?
Yeah, there's no doubt it does shows it is a global event. It has changed. You know, no longer is it like us on this side of water running the European and then the US. It is much more global partners. You have Rolex there, you have BMW, you have Aon now coming on board as a global partner for both sides, and it's very much part of the event. That, you know, it's a big, huge sporting event around the world, and it's attracting global sponsors.
Talking of eagle-eyed, those amongst you will have noticed there's a chair to Padraig's right which is empty. One of the reasons we're here today is to fill that chair. So Padraig, over to you.
Yeah, with a year to go, I'd like to announce my first vice captain, and it's going to be Robert Karlsson.
Robert, welcome. Before we hear from you, Padraig, just give us your thoughts on putting Robert into that role this year as well as last time round.
Anybody who was involved in 2018 in the backroom staff would have seen this as a no-brainer pick. Robert is really good at this job. He's very logical, very straight. Doesn't let the emotions. He's playing to the stereotype. To be honest, he doesn't let the emotions get involved. A brilliant vice captain. He's somebody I've known. We've both been on the tour. He's a little longer on the tour than me, but you know, since the start of our tour, we've both had great success together. We've played Ryder Cup matches together. We've been partnered together. But ultimately, you know, he provides those two things. He provides a great sounding board, a very logical, very straight sounding board to talk to for myself for the next year, because there will be other vice captains, but like in a lot of instances, you have to wait. Not saying anything against Robert's golf, because he did perform very well the last couple of weeks there, but there's other guys who potentially could make the team that could be vice captains, but I need a vice captain now. And he also, Robert is an icon for the Northern Europeans, the continental Northern Europeans, and I need access to those guys. In the end of the day, there can be a disconnect, and Robert will bridge that gap with those young, not just Scandinavians, but actually all the continental Europeans. Robert would be an icon for, and he certainly helps me bridge that gap so that I have somebody there who knows them personally, and that's a big part of my job and Robert's job now, is to get to know the younger players personally over the next year, and Robert is certainly going to help with that side of it.
Robert, I know from personal experience how much you enjoyed the Ryder Cup last year in Paris. You must be delighted to be back in the role again.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Padraig asked me a little while ago, and just to get the question was fantastic, and it almost feels like the other Ryder Cup just a year ago we just finished it, but now it starts again. So I'm really, really looking forward to this process and being able to be part of the team again and help Portugal along the way.
Thanks, Robert. We'll open up some questions. As we've done before, this first section is for immediate use, for broadcast, for our agencies, for our social media chums. Jamie, do you want to start us off?
Thanks very much, Scott. Good afternoon, Padraig. You speak about the percentages, who's really likely to make it, who surprised you. Who's really likely to make it, who surprised you?
We're not allowed to promote gambling on the tour, are we? It's interesting, actually. The stats are there, and there's some very obvious ones. There's some in the middle there, that you go, well, I really thought he had a better chance, and there's one or two. It's interesting for us, for statistically, right? There's a couple that have been pulled up and flagged to us that maybe we wouldn't have been aware of, and they say, no, these guys are really producing the figures. If they keep doing this, they'll have a big performance that will push them into very close to making the team. So that's kind of the way of the world now when it comes to these things. There's a lot of obviously a lot of statistical data behind it, and it just helps us to make sure we're keeping in check with everybody, making sure, as I said, when the last thing we want is surprise us in the sense of we don't want a situation where somebody gets in the team and we don't have that relationship built up. Whereas these percentages and the predictions help us target players so that we can build a personal relationship, so that it's nothing to do with their golf at this stage. It's just really to do with just being able to know them and know what makes them tick.
How much does it mean to you on the first qualifying event to have such a strong field, and not so much the Rorys and the John Rams, who you'd think are almost dead certs to be in the team next year, but everybody's here to put their hand up and say, Skipper, I want to make this team, I'm here from day one?
Well, this is a huge part of why it's starting this week and why it's finishing at the BMW PGA Championship. This is the flagship event in Europe, and the players turn up and play it. This is our biggest European event. It's the one you want to be there, and you're guaranteed getting a really strong field, which is not just important this year, which is nice to start it off this way, but be exceptionally important come this time next year, that we have the best players playing the last event. If there's positions still to be decided, each player will be going up against other good players that week, and there won't be any excuses. You can't sort of turn around and say, well, I don't want to come to this event, it's not my it's not big enough or something. This ultimately will lead to no excuses next year. Everybody will be here who wants to get in the team, and it will, it's a fine golf course. It really is now. They've produced the improvements. Everybody loves it. It's a real solid golf course, and will produce fine play, which is exactly the sort of golf course we'll be testing the players on.
Just finally for me, you sort of touch upon the fact that Robert can in particular build that relationship with the Scandinavian. Victor Hovland's first event in the European Tour this week, of course. Question for both of you, what are your experiences? How much have you seen of Victor, and how excited are you about his potential?
Yeah, I've obviously met him. He played a tournament I was in the US, and I went up and introduced myself. Besides that one encounter, it's really been just the same as you guys, following it on social media and that. And he really does look like a fine player. Like, there's a lot of his play has been phenomenal. The way he goes about it, as I said, with the small interaction with him, looks like he's got a really good attitude, well focused. Feels like, to me, it looks like he feels like he belongs, which is the biggest key to a young rookie coming out on tour. It's if they look like they're caught in the headlights, they could disappear quickly. Whereas Victor really does look like he's here to play golf, and I'm really I'm obviously paired with him this week. I'm looking forward to playing with him, and from my perspective, there's not many guys in the game of golf. Well, there's more and more actually now that I say it, but that I'm keen to go out and to watch his game.
Yes, sir. Do you have a question in the front here?
Yeah, another one about Victor. I'm from Norway. I wonder, did you specifically ask to play with him this week?
I have a list of players that both myself and Robert will want to play with over the last number of weeks and the weeks coming. There's a good list of, and generally they're not the players, they're the young players. As I said, the ones we wouldn't necessarily played with in the past. Victor is on that list, and this is the first opportunity for that to happen. So that's why it's happened this week. As I said, I wouldn't want to miss out on playing with him, but this is our first opportunity, so that's why it's happened this week. But he's a name amongst maybe 20 names that we have chosen that we want to get out there and build those relationships with.
Yes, Phil, the back. I think we're mic-less, so carry on. Shout loudly.
Padraig, you mentioned you might have to wait quite a while to name your other vice captains, but would you prefer to name them as early as possible, and is the plan to have a total of 5 as become the norm?
The definite plan would be to have 5. No, I don't necessarily need to name them too early. I think myself and Robert, I have somebody to talk and discuss with now. The vice captains that I would be thinking about all know. I've talked to them all, and I've spoken to them. Actually, I've spoken to a few. There's certainly one still completely open, but I've spoken to most of the other ones, and I will continue to talk to them in the sense of, if I'm looking for an opinion and I haven't named them as vice captain, I can still go and ask them and talk to them. But most of the majority of the heavy lifting is going to be done by Robert for the next. Certainly the next 6 months, and you might find that another 1 or 2 is named, and then ultimately maybe the last 2 are going to be named. We haven't set any dates on this, but closer to the tournament, maybe a month or 2 in advance. You clearly need them when it comes to picking, the 3 picks at the end of it. You do need to have your vice captains, and you need to have them for a few weeks beforehand to make sure you're getting a full and rounded view of what's out there.
Can you give us any of the names?
No. No, but it wouldn't be hard to figure them out. You wouldn't take a genius to start picking out who'd be the vice captains.
Nice try, Phil. We'll go for Facebook Live. A couple of questions, Ali, from yourself.
Yeah, Robert, this is your second time as vice captain. What lessons did you learn in Paris?
Well, the job is a lot bigger than you think. That's for sure. I'm really looking forward as well to work with Padraig. Is obviously going to be very different from Thomas, 2 completely different individuals. So I think I'm going to have my hands full over the next few months to see how we're going to relate to Padraig compared to Thomas. So it's important for me to not carry too much with me from that, learn from what was important and kind of leave the other things behind. And but I'm looking forward to it. I think definitely the personal aspect of trying to build relationships with the players, it's very, very important, and that's something I'm going to do now, obviously now when I'm more official in this position. So I'm looking forward to the fall and trying to build those relationships with the players that are kind of, just as Padraig said, hovering around the numbers and kind of we can see our potential. So it's a very exciting fall in front of us. Yeah, well, being at home like we did, what we did last year was, it was everything from setting up the golf course to trying to understand what we're going to do when we were in Paris. Now it's kind of served to us, so it'll be a different course and course understanding. So we're going to look, I assume, with Duncan and 15th Club people to get as much facts we can on the golf course and trying to understand the golf course, and we know pretty much how they're going to set it up. They can't do much with the rough because there's not much there anyway. It's bunkers and fairways, so it's kind of but trying to understand the golf course and what we're going to be dealt a little bit more than trying to set it up what we did last time.
Any more, Ali? Any more from our broadcast immediate use section? If not, I'll ask everybody to switch their cameras off. A reminder that the next little section is for embargoed use for websites this evening and for dailies tomorrow. So no social media from this next section, please.